Hi, David Allman here. And for the longest time, I had the hardest time memorizing licks. That time is not over. I still have a hard time memorizing. For a long time, it really bothered me. Not anymore. And I want to share with you why. I don't think you should worry about that too much. When I started playing, I was 15 years old, and I would listen to my guitar heroes at the time, and the solos that they would play seemed to be somewhat magical. I didn't understand how someone could come up with a solo. And I thought about it a lot, and then my answer to that was, well, these guys must have memorized a lot of licks. They just transcribed a lot and memorized these licks, and whenever there was a solo that they had to do or an improvisation, they would dig back into their mental catalog of all the licks that they've learned, select the right one in style and in key and in tempo and throw that out. That's not what's happening. And that's why it's not that important to have all those licks memorized, because I had the hardest time doing that. And I thought, can anybody really be that mentally able to memorize all that and dig back? And a robot can do that, but a human, I didn't think it was possible. Some can, but here's the thing. When I started thinking about music as a language, and really thinking about music as a language, not just as this philosophical idea. I really thought about all the parallels between music and language, and I would think about it a lot on my walks or before I go to bed, or I just constantly thought about how to use music to really express yourself. That's my quest, I think. I really have a passion for that. And I realized that when I'm talking to someone, let's take this, for example, this video, I'm talking to you, it's not scripted. I have a main idea of what I want to share with you, but the sentences that are coming out of my mouth are not scripted. It just comes out. I have the idea and I throw it out there. And that means that, well, that means that there is a thread. Something is happening between the idea and the delivery of the idea, through my mouth in this case. And that means that it is possible, at least in human language, let's put music aside, it is possible to speak ideas, creative ideas, things that are not planned, make sense without having that prepared. I'll be back. Let me know when it's over. Right now, when I'm speaking to you, I didn't know 5 seconds ago that I would say that. It's the same exact thing with music. At least it's possible to have the same exact thing in music. And if that's possible, well, that frees yourself from worrying too much about memorizing licks. But there's a little more to that. So how do you go from the idea to the delivery? Well, how do I do that now? I was not born able to do that. I can do that. A baby can't express himself completely in that way. He expresses himself in his own way, with cries, with whatever tantrums, or whatever it is, whatever babies do, and I would know at this time in my life. But it's the communication, a baby communicating with someone is very different than me communicating with someone, except when I'm hungry. But that being said, what happens between the baby stage and the adult stage? Well, a lot of listening. My son, who can't talk yet with real words, listens a lot, and I could see he pays attention a lot, and he tries to reproduce things. Okay, so that's, if we take the parallel with music, that's me listening to a musical idea that I really like, we'll call it a lick, and trying to reproduce that. So far, so good. You still need to do that. And then eventually, something just, there's a transition that I saw with my daughter, who's 3, between the time she couldn't really express herself with words and it started to be words. And yet those words, those mini sentences, were not things that I taught her. Like we said, when she's saying scared monsters, well, I never use that sentence, yet she makes up these things. how did she make up these things? Well, by hearing some of the words, like by reading books. Like she heard the word monster in a book, and then she associated that with the picture of a monster, the idea of a monster, and then she took one idea and another, like 2 words, and that makes an idea, a sentence. Eventually, she'll be able to really say the sentence, I'm scared of monsters, instead of scared monsters, which she's getting to that point, by the way. But all that to say that, okay, it's possible to do. And in music, how do you do that? Well, by listening to a lot of things and then doing what babies do by reproducing what you heard, reproducing those licks, transcribing these licks, learning how to play them on the instrument. And then you don't have to have it memorized exactly. You don't have to have the sentences memorized exactly. What you have what needs to happen is the invisible mental connections between what you're hearing and the way to bring it out. And that's by experimentations. Like baby would babble, try things. Like I'm training my son to say papa instead of mama. But he says mama. But a lot of papa, 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 and he's starting to papa, papa, like that, and it comes out. He's reproducing that, imitating that. Eventually, he will have that connection made between the sound pa. In order to do pa, I need to put my mouth, close it, starts closed, some air is coming out, and then open your mouth this way, pa, pa, and that's what happens. Same when you're memorizing a lick. It's subconscious, but when you're memorizing a blues lick and you hear ba 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 bam bam, okay, you work on that bam to have that sound bam. Well, it's not a mouth thing, but it's a finger thing, and you got that ba. That's a bend. That's a certain amount of pressure ba ba ba, and you're making that invisible mental connection with that sound bam, with those muscle being triggered. I'm not talking about positions or anything like that, just a physical ability that you're doing to reproduce a sound in your head. And that happens naturally when you're working
about 4
on
more
lick.
minutes?
You don't have to memorize it
Yeah.
because the connection is
Yeah.
being made in your head. The more you transcribe things, the more you work on different licks, the easier it's going to be to deliver that type of sound that you might hear, just even imagine in your head, reproducing it in your fingers. That's what happens. So don't worry about not being able to memorize licks. But when you are working on licks, be confident and be at peace with the fact that there's some connections that are being made mentally the more you work on licks. It's not about the memorization of the lick. It's about those invisible things that are happening in your mental where you are connecting a sound with a physical thing that you're doing, just like babies do when they're listening first and then eventually they talk. And the more you think about those things, music as a language, the more it becomes simple to improve as a musician. And you can just think about these things, and that's how you can come up with awesome musical concepts without having to study concepts of other people. You can make up your own concepts. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn music theory or anything like that. Not at all. And if you watch my videos, you know that I definitely find value in music theory. But you can go very, very far and develop awesome, beautiful things musically if you really embrace the music as a language kind of thing. Yes, we made it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching this. Subscribe if you haven't already. More videos coming soon. Watch more and practice well. I'll see you next time. Salut.